Delete your roadmaps. Stop worrying what programming language to learn first. Seriously, Python, JavaScript, C#, it doesn't matter. You're asking the wrong question and that very thing is keeping you stuck. In this video, the right question to ask has nothing to do with code. The perfect roadmap how to get you hired already exists. And that is not on YouTube or on some expensive course. It's hidden in the plain sight, and I'm going to show you how to build it for yourself. For free and using nothing but only the job listings. This method is better than any roadmap you can follow. My name is Aleksei, I'm Java developer, and I recently did some interesting adventure on Reddit. I always wanted to try mentoring seriously, but I never liked how it is done in the companies. Mentoring in the company is just the way how to make person familiar with all the components you have. But I wanted to teach people, I wanted to bring them value and not only for this particular company. So I wrote this post on Reddit where I explained my situation and I asked people to DM me if they are one of the following. If you are a complete beginner or if you are doing some Java roadmap or you are already established engineer just looking for some career advice, I asked them to DM me and just have a friendly chat. And more than 300 people reacted. I still answered to many of them and many of them still wait for my response. 2 weeks after publishing this post, 100 people already got their response, but 200 is still waiting. Most of the people from this 100 were the complete beginners, and I found so many common patterns that they all struggle with. So if you are also beginner and looking for your first job, you better keep watching this. So how do you go from feeling completely lost to having a clear developer roadmap? I'm going to show you because my own path was a complete mess. I tried to learn different languages, started with Python, ended with Java. I waited 2 years trying to land a job before realizing my entire strategy was wrong. Once I figured the right approach, I became good enough to be overemployed engineer, so having 2 full-time jobs at the same time. And since then I have the recruiters constantly in my inbox. Dozens of very smart guys with the programming degrees teach the newcomers completely different things. Some teach C language, some teach Python, some teach C#, JavaScript, all the way to Pascal and Frontral. 4th run in 2025. And nobody says that it's not about the language, it's about you. You will be struggling with programming in any case. It just requires to go through the discomfort and misunderstanding of the things. Those who have gone through it at the beginning all became successful and great developers. And of course can tell everyone that their path and sequence of learning languages was the correct one. But we will never learn about people who didn't become developer, and this is the typical survivor error. Therefore, if you are lazy, the most adequate option for you would be just to pick the language randomly. And then if programming is something that you like and stick with, there will be a moment when you can decide for yourself whether you want to stick with it or change. Nobody argues which computer game is the best for the start. If you want to become a gamer, you start with a random game, and then everything works out by itself. I suggest doing the same for the programming. There's so many people who learn Python for some time, but now are stuck and lost, have no idea what to do next. They were asking me whether they should go and learn Java or C# or JavaScript, but why do you exactly want to learn that language? That is the right question. If your final goal is to get a job, I would focus only on the technologies that are required to get the job. I do get that the choice of programming language is something that I also struggled at the beginning. What helped me was speaking with established developers and asking what is their work routine. The good news are a language is only like 10 or 20% of the iceberg. So instead of trying to pick the best language that will be well paid and required in the future, just pick the role. The simple test would be if you want to see the results of what you did, you can pick the front end because that's where you can actually interact with the interface. But if you want to have complex logic, you should go for the back end. You will never be able to color all those nice buttons, but you'll be able to write some logic. If you want to have both, you can go for the mobile or full stack. But be careful with the full stack because it takes twice as much effort to land the first job. Once you know your future role, you have to stick with it long term. It will be so tempting to switch to something more appealing in a half year, only to discover later that it has its pros and cons too. If there is going to be only one thing you should remember from this video is please stick to one plan instead of trying to find the perfect plan. It's just more effective. So many people told me something like, I learned JavaScript and Python at the same time, but those 2 languages take years to master at the level of entry-level job. And I will just briefly say a few things about Python. It's only my personal opinion and is based on the market situation in the Czech Republic and in Russia. Here, it's extremely hard to find entry-level job with a Python. In my experience, this language is very rarely used for enterprise development. You can try to look for DevOps, tester, data analyst or support roles with Python, but it's extremely hard to find entry-level development role. So by now you should understand whether you should go for the front-end, back-end, mobile, full stack. How do you pick the right tech stack? First of all, there is no right tech stack. The best thing you can do is just make a little research which language, which tech stack is used in this or that field. For example, in a banking system, Java is widely used. For the system engineering, you can look for C++ or C languages. But that's the only difference. Or if there is some project that you would like to build, like Instagram, you can go and check what is this tech stack used to build on Instagram. But that's basically the only difference. Your tech stack will define the list of products that you will be able to build. So if you don't have any preference, just pick randomly and here's what should be the next step. If your goal is to land a job, this is what you should look for. Once you have your 10 listings, count every technology that is being repeated in those listings. Then sort it in order of repetitions, and that is how you get an ordered list of the things what you should learn in a priority. This is so much better than any roadmap you can find, because roadmaps are being built once and then they can get obsolete, but the job market is constantly changing. Only then, when you have this list, you can go and search for the roadmap for this particular technology. For example, roadmap for Java language. But how do you actually learn? First of all, never expect from any course to give you a perfect understanding. Courses are just good to get you familiar with the technology. But in order to build an actual expertise, you have to practice. I would say passive learning and practice should go in ratio 1:4. And another common question when practicing, what to do when you are stuck. A very common message was, I'm watching this lecture to understand what it is, and I feel like it's very easy. But when I'm coding, I'm completely blank. And this cycle is just keep repeating. Once I know a problem and I fail to solve it, I just give up. I go and search what is the other solutions, and I don't know how to proceed. Here are 3 bullet things that you can do. First one is to sit with the problem for at least 20 minutes. Without hurrying, just sit with it, think about it, struggle with it, and try to get creative. Second thing, they still teach it in universities, just talk to a rubber duck. What's the input, what should be the output, what are the constraints? Pair programming was actually invented because this tactic is very effective. It's much easier to find solution when you just speak about the problem. And the third advice is to use the pseudocode. Before thinking about single line, just write down the steps in a plain English. Another few messages that I got was about feeling like your brain is too slow and you're just not good enough. It may be because you feel you're too old or too stupid or you're just not a technical person, but please stop worrying about that. Your brain is just trying to find the reasons for you to say no to this adventure. And by the way, that feeling is going to be all the way with you throughout your career as a developer. We all experience imposter syndrome from time to time, and there is no way to completely heal it. So learn how to fight it as soon as possible. I had that problem early on at university because so many of my peers were getting results faster than me. The hint is that you cannot really do anything about it, so please don't overthink. What worked for me was just focusing on my goal, on my problem, ignoring the surroundings, and just committing to solving my thing. And then of course try to find joy in all this technical mess, because you will eventually stick to it for years. And if your goal is to land a job as soon as possible, here's the universal advice. Go to the interviews. You will never feel ready, you don't have to feel ready, you just have to be willing to. Think about it this way. If you need a job, you have to pass interview. How do you pass? You answer the questions well. How do you answer questions well? You know what the questions are, or you know all the answers. How do you know that? Because you learn the relevant stuff. How do you know what's relevant? Because you know what's asked on interviews. How? Because you go and practice interviews. That was the key for me. I just learned all the questions because I was attending so many interviews. Just think about it. It is free, you don't pay anything for being interviewed. There are 10 companies every day going bankrupted and opening, so you do not risk running out of options just because you apply too much. And lastly, for the juniors or interns, it's very common practice to give you a homework. If you're able to write production ready project, it will be very easy to evaluate you. So many beginners want to write something that is good enough to show off on an interview to prove that you are good enough to get that job. But how do you know that this project is good enough? Well, there is no better proof than if it was given to you on an interview. No company will give you easy product to implement as a homework, and even if you don't pass the interview, you will have +1 repository on your GitHub portfolio where you will be able to beautifully state it was made for this company. Alright, so go to the interviews as soon as possible. Don't wait to feel ready. You will never be. Okay, so now you know what to learn, you know how to learn, but you are not still getting the jobs. First of all, make sure your resume is passing ATS filters. If you're sure that your resume do pass the ATS filters, here's what you should do next. If you're getting rejections as a newcomer, unfortunately that's the harsh reality. You basically have only few options. First one is the advice from the recruiter I heard. Just say that you're ready to work for free. Explain right away that it's not because you don't feel like you're good enough, but because you understand that the job market is just broken and you have to adapt to it. I guess recruiter will understand. But I personally hate that advice. Here's what I would do instead. I would just fake it until I make it. Take the project that you think is production ready, maybe it's just because somebody gave it to you on an interview, or better, find developer to take a look or give some project to you. The project should be complex enough and enterprise level. Then based on that project, build your legend. Just say that you worked for a year in some X company. By the way, you don't have to make it up, just pick some existing company and say that you were a contractor, because nobody will check for the contractor. By the way, you don't have to make up the company, just pick some existing one and say that you were a contractor. Nobody checks the job history for the contractor. Once you have the project, you have the legend, use that in your resume. It is better to have someone to take a look at it, maybe interview you, just to check that you are understanding it deeply enough. But having only that 1 year of experience will bring you like 500% more of traction, just because the IT job market is completely broken and people look only for the years of experience. Now you know what to learn, you know how to learn, and you know how to get the job. There are other popular questions that I didn't know where to fit. So the first one is, how long time do you need to get a job? Short answer is 1 year, long answer it depends. I can speak only about Java when it comes to technical stuff. For example, it will take you 1 month to learn all the tools and fundamentals when it comes to the Java language and all the surrounding technologies. It's gonna take you 1 more month to learn all the algorithms and design patterns. I would reserve at least 1 month to learn about databases and data management. And 1 more month for all the frameworks like Spring Boot and all this stuff, plus some CI/CD knowledge that's also required for the beginners now. Somewhere from here I will already start to apply for interviews, but also spend some time learning about the cloud and microservices architecture. That's the time you will spend based on my roadmap, and based that you will spend at least 15 to 20 hours a week learning. And that's only technical stuff. If you have problems with the soft skills, that's gonna take you much longer to be ready for an interview. So depending on the language, you can add or subtract 2 months from that time frame. If you are too lazy to build your own roadmaps, the way I explained it before, here are the ones I like. For Java, I can only advise roadmap.sh. It's a beautiful website and I use that to learn Java. For others, I don't know, but please don't focus so much on the roadmaps. The final lesson for you is that developers who get the job are not always the best coders. They are the best strategists and they understand the rules of the game. My goal for this channel is to tell you about those strategies that other people are afraid to speak about, because that's what brings you the results. If you want tailored advice, you have all the links below. We can have a consultation, or you just can reach me on email. In any way, if you watched until here, I encourage you to check out this video, and finally, please choose your path, take your step and get paid.